Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, people of all fandoms, welcome to the Ferret and Raccoon podcast, episode 123. I am the Angry Raccoon, your only host for this podcast, bringing you the first podcast of September 2019, and given the amount of trailers and news stories and the amount of things I had to cut from this trailer in order to keep it a little bit succinct, this might as well have been the first podcast of October, given how much horror people seem to be promoting right about now. But yes, it's just me on this podcast. It was going to be someone else, but work gets in the way of things, much like I'm pretty sure everyone can relate to that. And yeah, let's pretty much get straight into it. So, had a pretty busy fortnight for the most part, like I pretty much hinted at on the previous podcast. The first thing I want to talk about that I did, which was quite cool, and I think it's kind of already finished in terms of availability, I guess you could say, and that is I essentially went to go see Solange's When I Get Home. For those of you who are probably wondering what exactly I mean by went to go see, Solange released her, I think that's her second studio album, When I Get Home, and along with that, she essentially released a first time directed and edited film, which she did, for the album. And essentially at the V&A up in London, me and Recess, good friend of the podcast, essentially went to go see it. And it is an interesting film for the most part. It's definitely a first time filmmaker's film. It's very experimental, it's very art house, it's very artistic, it's very much up for interpretation. It's very hard to tell what exactly the intent of a lot of it was for the most part. Like, I can't really tell, not to discredit Solange, I'm not really sure how smart she is or what kind of metaphors exactly she's making. I'm not sure if I'm essentially coming up with better metaphors for what she was trying to come up with or what she wasn't even trying to come up with. I'm not sure. But regardless, I really did like it. It's not very long. It's as long as the album. I think it's actually technically longer than the album because there are scenes and bits of instrumental that do not find their way on the album, which is pretty interesting. So it does feel like a little bit more of a complete package compared to the album. And it also gives a lot of context to the album, given the fact that it's called When I Get Home and the film is essentially filmed in, Texas, I believe? Solange's hometown. So it's essentially her looking back on her hometown as she's left it and kind of seeing how much it has evolved or how much it hasn't evolved, as well as dealing with, other kind of subject matters in terms of like race, beauty, women, culture, a lot of themes with cowboys, and a lot of like referencing and repeating imagery, such as people standing or doing formations, circling things, once again coming back to that cowboy theme, as well as the primary colors being like black, white and brown, and a lot of dancing for the most part. It does kind of have a lot of elements. There's a lot of stuff to kind of unpack in it, lots to do with like life, death, spirit, race, culture once again, and it is very interesting. There are some very interesting visuals and it is very well shot in some aspects, and there are some interesting stuff as well as some kind of creepy and what's the word, cryptic stuff in there, which I'm guessing maybe only Solange or people from Texas would only know. I'm not 100% sure, but if you can watch it somehow, hopefully Solange or whoever releases it online so people can actually go and see it, because I do think it is worth a watch. But that's one thing I did. The other thing I did as well was I went to the Dark Crystal The Age of Resistance exhibition at the BFI down at the South Bank in London, which is another kind of limited exhibition or event, which I'm pretty sure is ending possibly by the time this podcast goes up, so unfortunately you won't be able to see it, but I did shoot a video, so I will have some footage, hopefully somewhere where you can actually see what the exhibition looks like for those Dark Crystal fans. But my general thoughts on the exhibition, it was really nice. If you're a big fan of the Dark Crystal, it was awesome. It kind of gave you, I would say, almost exactly what you'd want. It kind of gave you a rough outlet of kind of like the production of the new series, a lot of the practical props and design works, and you see some of the puppets, you see some of the creatures, some of the stuff from the actual film. I don't want to spoil too much because there are, I guess, technically spoilers there. I did see footage from the new series, and I gotta say, they were playing it in 60 frames per second, 4K, and it does look gorgeous. Like, it looks real to some extent. I know it's puppetry and all that, but it looked, looked amazing for the most part. There was a lot of stuff there from the series, which I guess is a bit of a spoiler. They did have some Skeksis there. They had some Gelflings. They're called Gelflings, right? The elf-like characters. They had the main characters there. Kind of, it was really cool to actually see the general model of the main characters, as well as some of the Skeksis, the throne, and as well as a lot of other characters that were there. So it was really nice. The way they set up the kind of foresty, their world area was really beautiful for the most part. It's that was worth getting a free ticket just to see that. So it was an amazing stuff, and I want to give a shout out to the BFI South Bank and Netflix for essentially putting the exhibition in London and letting people see it. So that was pretty awesome. Okay, so yeah, let's move on to the podcast, which is quite the big one, I would say, in terms of like general stuff to talk about and such. So over the fortnight, we had the first, well, I wouldn't say the first, we had another Nintendo Direct. This is the Nintendo Direct for September the 4th, 2019. And we had a pretty interesting one. It was generally a lot of confirmation in terms of like new games, re-releases. You've got NES games coming up there, as well as a lot of other, bigger announcements, which I'm going to talk about very briefly. But I've essentially found a link that essentially lists everything that was essentially shown off in this Direct. I'm also going to leave the full Direct, which is about 39 or 38 minutes long if you want to watch the whole thing, as well as that link in the description and the download link, so you can go see all the other stuff I'm not going to talk about. The first thing I want to quickly mention is the Little Town Hero game. This is coming from the people who made the Pokemon series, Game Freak. This is their next game, and it's looking pretty nice. Hopefully people actually enjoy it and pick it up, but I am looking forward to actually seeing what they can do. Can they be a little bit more original than Pokemon? What exactly are they going to do? So I'm very optimistic about this trailer. The next thing I want to talk about, of course, is Super Smash Bros. Ultimate and the next DLC character going into the game, which is going to be Terry Bogard, aka Mr. SNK himself from Fatal Fury, is finally going to be in Smash. This was kind of hinted at a while ago, given that Nintendo were kind of saying something to do with SNK was going to be appearing somewhere within a Nintendo platform. And I'm really happy to have Terry Bogard. He is a very underrated video game character. And the reveal trailer I thought was really nice because it essentially, showed a little timeline of gaming history and kind of, shined a spotlight on the Neo Geo graphic. I believe is the Neo Geo system, which essentially had Fatal Frame as well as a lot of SNK games on there at the time, which essentially kept that system alive. Terry Bogard / Fatal Fury basically put SNK on the map and kept them alive for 25 plus years. So it only makes sense that someone or one entity be put into, Smash for the most part. The trailer was great, kind of like using the sprite work to essentially kind of have every character grasping for the invitation to Smash, and of course, Mr. Terry Bogard gets it. I am very annoyed once again by the general reception of people getting really, really unnecessarily angry that Terry Bogard has been added to Smash. I mean, people really need to shut the hell up at this point. I mean, this wasn't Nintendo are not putting characters in just specifically for you. They're not pandering to anyone, any particular one person. They're essentially putting in characters that have relevancy and importance within gaming history as a whole. Hence why Terry Bogard from the Fatal Fury games published by SNK has been added to this, game. I do find it really annoying, and it is very discouraging to see how Western audiences are so ungrateful that Nintendo is going out of their way to add variety into their fighting game when they really don't have to. They could easily just add another another character they own, but they're not. They're being respectful and they're essentially honoring gaming history, because at this moment right now, Smash isn't even really a fighting game anymore. It's essentially a playable archive of gaming history as a cultural phenomenon. So if you want to get upset about Terry Bogard, you can piss off as far as I'm concerned. But I guess we can turn our attention to the final DLC character, which hasn't been revealed yet. Because obviously we've got Joker from the Persona series, we've got the heroes from the Dragon Quest series, we've got Banjo-Kazooie, now Terry Bogard. The final slots, if you're going to ask me if I'm going to put all my cards on the table and put it on one character, I think it's going to be Crash Bandicoot. I think he is definitely going to be in the game. If him, I don't know who else. I think he's the only other gaming character that deserves to be in there, given how much of a history he has. The only thing that will stop that is possibly Activision, because I know Activision are the kind of company where they're not satisfied with just making money the one time. They want to be constantly making money all the time, even from a product that is like 6 years old. I'm essentially talking about microtransactions and them essentially taking advantage of people through microtransactions. But let's be hopeful. Let's see. Last thing I want to talk about is the surprise confirmation of Deadly Premonitions 2. That is happening. Swery, who made the original Deadly Premonitions, is going to be working on this game. And I'll be honest, not a sequel I was honestly screaming or wanted, but I'm actually pleased we're actually getting it. Deadly Premonitions is a bit of a cult favorite game. It is not the best game ever made, but it's certainly a fun game. If you've never seen it and you've never seen Twin Peaks, definitely like look it up and maybe like watch a playthrough, especially a playthrough of someone who knows what they're doing, because the way the game is kind of structured, it can be a bit boring. Just look for like the playthrough which is the shortest amount of length, and definitely give that a watch and you'll understand why it's a bit of a cult game. But Deadly Premonitions 2, it looks great. I saw a little bit of the gameplay. Agent York Morgan is riding a skateboard, and it definitely looks like it might keep the spirit of the original game, so we'll just see. Hopefully it just stays weird. But that's everything I want to talk about for the Nintendo Direct. Let's move on to our main news stories and topics, and let's talk about the first trailer, which is sticking with games, and that is essentially going to be the Dark Pictures anthology, Little Hope. Now, quite recently, I think less than a few weeks ago, Supermassive Games, the developers of Until Dawn and the Dark Pictures anthology, recently released the first installment in their Dark Pictures anthology, being Man of Medan. And as that game pretty much wrapped up, we have the teaser trailer for the next story, which is going to be called Little Hope, which I'm pretty excited for the most part. I think Supermassive Games is very realistic, film-based, prompt-based games are quite accessible for people who don't play video games, and I guess for horror fans, because it's like a little interactive horror film. And this next trailer, I mean, the first thing that I'm going to complain about with this trailer is it's rather dark for some reason, and it's really hard to tell what's going on. But I've watched the trailer a couple of times, and you can definitely see who I believe is Will Poulter in the trailer. Will Poulter, who was in like Midsummer and Detroit, he's going to be in it, which is pretty cool. It'll be very interesting to see how his performance translates into a video game. That's going to be pretty interesting for the most part. It's also interesting as well, within the trailer at the very end, you see like that Welcome to Little Hope sign, which gives me some serious Silent Hill vibes, which I'm pretty excited about, because actually I did a tiny, I kind of messed around a little bit, and Little Hope is almost an anagram for Silent Hill to some extent. So for example, if you swap the P for an S, and then you swap the second E for an N, and then the O for an L, you basically have Silent Hill. So yeah, I think it's gonna try, either maybe it's just like a very loose reference to Silent Hill in terms of like the iconic Welcome to Silent Hill, as in a slight metaphor for Welcome to Hell, because hell was technically still in that in the title of Silent Hill. It might be referencing that. I'm pretty interested. Hopefully we'll actually see something Silent Hill related come out, which I cannot wait for. This story does look a lot creepier and a lot more personal compared to the Man of Medan episode that just came out. I'm not going to spoil the Man of Medan story, but it could have done with some improvements. A lot of the characters are pretty despicable and unlikable, and already I can see that this episode, Little Hope, could actually be a little bit more interesting. For the most part, like you have that witch child, you know, being cryptic and dancing around a fire, which is, I mean, children holding dolls, always creepy. And then you have like that old lady just getting like dragged off through chains, which is pretty horrifying. And so I'm guessing that what's going to happen is Will's character is essentially actually, you know, he actually cares. Excuse me, I cannot talk. He actually cares about whoever this lady is, and it seems like he actually is going to try and rescue her, which is pretty good, because in Man of Medan, the characters do not give a damn about anyone or anything, which is a bit, it's not very human-like, I would say, but this one should be, this one should be pretty interesting for the most part. Sorry, my computer almost crashed there. Yeah, so I'm interested in this trailer, and I wanted to bring it up because I know some people might want to see something different, and I think, once again, like I said, Supermassive games are pretty diversive. No, that's not the word. They're pretty universal. You know, anyone can enjoy it. Whew, I cannot speak today, guys. It has been a long day. Quick note, I do feel a bit ill, so sorry if I'm not making sense by the end of this podcast. But let's move on to our next trailer, which honestly has me pretty damn excited, because this was a reveal I honestly wasn't expecting, coming from the Crunchyroll exhibition or expo, which happened a few weeks ago. And that is essentially that Adult Swim are going to be adapting Junji Ito's most celebrated manga story, Uzumaki. And so I'm just thinking back. They're going to be adapting Uzumaki into a 4-part animated series. It's going to be directed by let me see if I can try and pronounce his name. Hiroshi Hagahama? I believe that's how you say his name. Oh no, sorry, no. Nagahama. I believe that's how you say his name. But yeah, he has most notably directed the anime adaptation of The Flowers of Evil, excuse me. And the score, interesting enough, will be by a Colin Stetton, who was the composer of Hereditary back from last year. So already we've got some pretty interesting, I guess, collaboration stuff coming through this, and I'm actually looking forward to this series, despite the fact that I never wanted an adaptation of Junji Ito's work ever. So I'm pretty interested for this series. Although the trailer itself, because actually I think I should say, if you haven't watched the trailer, if you're easily creeped out by scary imagery, maybe don't watch this trailer. Like, I'm not going to say you're going to get nightmares from this trailer alone, but you might get a bit creeped out. Especially, like, if you easily get creeped out by shocking or disturbing imagery, maybe skip this trailer and maybe just listen to me talk about it, because I won't go into graphic detail. You know, just a quick heads up for anyone who isn't into that kind of stuff. But the trailer was basically a proof of concept kind of imagery, had a lot of essentially animated storyboard stills with, you know, some iconic scenes which anyone who's read Uzumaki will know from the manga. I mean, I'll be serious, guys, I actually got chills from this trailer. Like, no joke. That music is super eerie. Like, I'm not sure if Colin composed that or if it's from anything, but it fits so perfectly. It is so unpleasant to listen to, and it's so horrifying in so many ways. It's an interesting piece of music for the most part. You see also this weird cloud face. Once again, I'm not going to describe it. You can watch the trailer if you want. This weird cloud face. And with the limited animation, the way it moves is even more like frightening. The way it moves for the most part, and especially the way the title of the series is said, because you hear a female voice say Uzumaki in a very peculiar way. That's really creepy, but it's effective at the same time, which I think is great. I'm hoping, these are kind of like my downsides with the series, I'm hoping that the more disturbing like moments aren't censored in some way. So what I mean by that is, if this is going to be shown on, let's say, Adult Swim in America, hopefully they don't censor some of the more shocking imagery with like black shadow so you can't even tell what you're looking at, which would kind of ruin the series and story for the most part. And I also wonder how they're going to like handle the pace and the structure of the reveals compared to the manga within the adaptation in an animated form. I am very interested to see if they're going to still do the same structure in which how Junji Ito does a reveal, where typically when you read one of his mangas, the last panel of a page before you see a disturbing and shocking reveal has a character looking horrified, and that's the last thing you see, and then you have that choice of turning the page. Do you want to see what the character is seeing? Do you want to see this horror? And obviously if you flip the page, you're going to see the horror in almost full page, double page horror or glory, depending on how you want to put it. So I am wondering how they're going to do that. Maybe they'll try and be super faithful. Obviously they only have 4 20-minute episodes, so hopefully nothing gets cut. But at the end of the day, worst case scenario, we're going to get an original soundtrack. So at least there's some kind of silver lining for the most part. Next trailer I'm going to talk about, and we're kind of staying with horror for the most part, and that is going to be the trailer for Antlers. This trailer came out of nowhere. I was not aware of this film. I'm not even really sure if I'm aware of the director, but I know Guillermo del Toro is attached to this project in some sense, and we really don't get much in this trailer, but it looks really freaky, whatever the hell is going on. And I've tried to figure it out, not too much, but yeah, this trailer is really odd. Like, the child's raspy voice makes this trailer for me, as well as the kind of reserved and paced editing. The child sounds traumatized, understandably, given what he is describing and what is going on. Any child or any person would be. And it's interesting because you don't really know what's going on. We seem to know that there is some kind of thing that is related to this kid. Some kind of monster, who knows, former parents, former family. It's really hard to say. But it's interesting how he mentions or uses the metaphor of 3 bears, but you only see in the family photo that there's 4 people, and I think he refers to it's like Big Bear, Little Bear, and Baby Bear. Now obviously he refers to himself as Little Bear, and he mainly talks about Big Bear being the one that's transforming or doing some horrible things, but Baby Bear isn't mentioned as much, and obviously it's the one we don't see as well. So I'm obviously wondering whether Baby Bear is actually a baby, because in the photo we do see a mother holding a baby. At the same time, where is the mother? I mean, granted, Big Bear could still be the mother, but who knows? It's really horrifying for the most part. One thing that was interesting about this film as well is there are a lot of like very dark scenes which are actually interesting. Well, they're scary as hell, but they're also interestingly lit with colored lighting for the most part. If you look very carefully throughout the trailer, whenever the kid is in darkness, he tends to have a different colored light. It's a great shot where he's kind of coming up the stairs with food and the light's a little bit more yellow. He's obviously down that tunnel and he's got like it's not I guess a red flare, and then you see like the cop and he has like his light is blue. So that's a really cool way of making your horror film a little bit more vibrant and standing out, which I thought was a really nice detail for the most part. The one thing I didn't like about this trailer, which I guess I can give it a pass, is that drawing that you see the lady or the teacher put together. It looks a little too good and a little too neat to be a child's drawing. Children don't really draw that neatly, especially things that they are scared of or trying to convey in some way. It's not really believable. You can kind of tell that a designer did that, unfortunately. And also, like, obviously it looks like the paper's been ripped. It doesn't look like it's been crumpled or anything. It looks like it's very carefully been ripped into 4 pieces. No one in their right mind carefully rips paper and tries to discard it. If you are that terrified of something on a piece of paper, you are destroying it as much as you can and trying to get rid of it. So that's my one little tiny gripe. I have no idea what's going on. It clearly seems to be something or someone is transforming into something. No idea what it is. The vague imagery we got of that one little thing at the very end of the trailer, I don't even know if that's even a face that moves. I really don't know. So that's already maybe an interesting monster design. So I'm looking forward to this film. Obviously, it has something to do with antlers or horns. There have been a few references to that in the trailer. So I'm interested to see where this happens. Hopefully it's good. Fingers crossed. But yeah, Antlers, I am interested for the most part. Next trailer we have, second to last-ish kind of trailer, is a trailer for Underwater, the incredibly uniquely titled film. And I mean, if you haven't watched the trailer, watch it and you'll pretty much understand what I mean when I say this. But it's one thing to be inspired by 1979's Alien, but it's another thing to be copying its structure to the letter. Like it's, you literally have a crew of characters working for a company. One of the characters is a short-haired, badass female. They're in an isolated place. They explore or discover something they shouldn't have. While being in suits, and then everyone gets picked off one by one, except for the badass female who survives or saves the day. This film is basically Alien for the most part, and I really don't know what their intent is. Like, are they just pandering to Alien fans, or are they trying to work the Alien formula into another setting? Like, I get that space and underwater are very much one in the same because they are both terrifying and they are both technically the unknown. But you could have been a bit more original with this. I mean, a lot of people also comparing it to The Abyss, which is understandable, but it's very unoriginal, unfortunately. And I mean, I understand there are people who haven't seen Alien and probably won't see Alien, but this still comes across as very generic. There's a lot of stuff that's just very same old same. I wouldn't even really call this like sci-fi horror. It just seems like generic romp to some extent. That's how I feel about it. But it's odd. I really don't get it. I mean, their spaceship water base looks really cartoony. The monsters look really cartoony as well. They don't look real. And I'm not saying that, practical effects would have made it look real. They probably wouldn't have, because they probably would have come up with an unoriginal, monster design. But it looks really fake right now, which is such a shame, I guess, because, there's potential with underwater horror. You don't really get a lot of them. And this one is just trying to be by the numbers for the most part. It's interesting to see TJ Miller in a horror film role, but the problem is with him being the Joker of the characters, and him kind of going like, it's the worst idea ever, when it's a really serious situation. Yes, the idea of walking underwater to get to wherever they're going, yeah, that is a very silly idea, but if he's going to be constantly making jokes as being like the smart-ass funny guy, which apparently every modern day horror film just needs someone to be making quips and jokes about, horrible things, it's going to be really hard to take his character seriously when he's being dragged underwater by a monster. Like, is he joking at that point? Like, I can't take this character seriously anymore. It's a real shame. I mean, the only thing I liked about this trailer was the weird, fleshy, red underwater room that seemed to have like hands coming down. That's kind of an interesting concept. It looks like it could be really freaky and maybe even tense to some extent. So I'll give it 1 point for the most part, I guess. But it's really It's really nothing special. I mean, they even did the same kind of like title reveal as Alien, where they slowly reveal each letter, except it's a lot more bootleg here and a lot less stylized because they just did it in the trailer just to make it seem more epic and tense. Very fake for the most part, I'll be honest. Dear. But the last proper trailer I'm going to talk about is one that's kind of interesting for the most part. It's really more of a funny mention, and that is going to be Bad Boys for Life, aka Bad Boys 3. This one has been in the works for a while. They've wanted to do this for a while, and they finally did it, I guess. And yeah, it looks pretty faithful to the first two, which I've seen. I do enjoy those films. They're not the greatest films of all time, but they're watchable. They're enjoyable. They've got their moments. That was like, classic Michael Bay back in the day when he wasn't, wasting his time. But it's interesting to see that that LA, like, so bright, the areas are shaded, and that kind of whole yellow, sweaty, and like dirty and gritty kind of cinematography kind of look that the original two films is still kind of here, which I really do like. You do kind of see that within like the guy's office and the mechanic's place, and some of the overview shots have that. So I'm actually pretty pleased to see that aesthetic is still there. There's a lot more color in this trailer as well, for the most part. Like that shot when they're on the motorcycle and it's kind of spinning, and you can kind of see like the colored lighting that I guess is in the environment is reflecting on the bike as they're rotating. So you have like this really nice shot where like the color is constantly changing and reflecting off the bike. That's a really nice shot, honestly. Like, almost doesn't feel like it should be in like a film such as Bad Boys 3, but it's interesting. Unfortunately, they're trying to go for a more like, buddy cop. I mean, granted, the original ones were buddy cops. Slightly more buddy cop comedic route. A lot of the jokes fall flat, unfortunately, which is a bit of a shame. And they don't really show like the villain or the threat, so the stakes really aren't that high in this film as of right now, because we don't know what's going on. There's some nice cool shots in that with like Will Smith shooting people, like once again in the mechanics, and once again it's visually very nice. But overall, I guess it would just be a crowd pleaser. And I guess I wanted to mention it because I do like the original two films. Once again, not the greatest films of all time, but the film's enjoyable nonetheless. And I guess it's interesting to see that it technically is kind of being true to the franchise. It's very rare that after so long the original actors come back, being Will Smith and Martin Lawrence reprise their roles, and it seems as if nothing has really changed in a good way. So that's worth a shout out for the most part. And speaking of shout outs, the last trailer we have, which is kind of a doozy, but I'm not really going to talk about it because I wanted to more or less mention it. And that is essentially going to be the graduation films from the French Goubli's school from 2019. I am not sure if I pronounced the name of the school. The spelling, just in case you want to know, which will be in the description, is Gobelins. I'm not 100% sure if that's the right pronunciation, but essentially the graduates from this animation school, their short animated films are going to be released starting from, I think, some point this September. So each week we're going to have a new piece of animation from a graduate from this school, which is pretty awesome. We have the trailer to essentially tease that, and obviously we're seeing a lot of varied styles, a lot of very interesting stuff, and I'm not going to go into everything because it is essentially a hodgepodge of different animations, but just a quick reminder to essentially possibly go and watch these trailers, or films when they come out. I know I will be, and yeah, that's pretty much going to wrap up our podcast. Like I said, it's a bit of a horror-related, weird one for the most part, but I think it's a nice way to kind of kick off September, kind of talking about things that aren't too far away, such as October and Halloween. So that's great. I don't really have anything else to add other than the video of the episode, which is going to be it's going to be a music video. It's going to be Gold Link with You Say featuring Tyler the Creator and Jay Prince. I don't know who Price J is. Jay Prince finally released the music video for possibly one of my favorite songs of this year so far. And obviously I don't want to spoil what exactly happens in this music video, but all I will say is if your party doesn't end the way this party does, then it's not worth going to, simply put. Right, that is pretty much me done for the podcast. I will see you guys in the next podcast, hopefully with more guests, because I have a feeling things are going to get even more interesting in terms of news stories and trailers. But other than that, other than essentially checking everything in the description and the download link, as well as hitting me up at my email, that's raccoonplusfriends@gmail.com. Also contact me if you want, for whatever reason, on my Twitter, that is Angry Raccoon. I think there's only one C in the raccoon for the most part. It'll all be in the description. It'll be in the download link if you want to follow me and do whatever, all the socials for the most part. And with that being said, I will end this podcast like I always do by saying I was the Angry Raccoon, and I will see you on the next podcast.